Robin Salverson, SDSU Extension Cow-Calf Field Specialist, and I'm here at the 2021 Range Beef Cow Symposium, and I have the privilege to be interviewing Dr. Clark from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and he did a presentation on identifying blind spots in calf health, and Dr. Clark is a veterinarian, and he gave his perspective in regards as a veterinarian, and so I want to welcome you here and thank you for joining us. And he really had a really good insight today about not just focusing on vaccinations when it comes to calf health, but what are some of the other things that you talked about today to kind of highlight calf health and whatnot?
Yeah, so we talked about vaccination, especially with regard to scours, calf scours. And while there's, I believe there's some good value in some of the scours vaccines, but I think that if a person that had a significant scours problem on their farm were to only use vaccination as their strategy to address that, they would probably come up dry and they would need to do some other things as well in order to truly fully address that problem. Beyond that, I think that really learning the why behind why we do the things we do, especially today with regard to colostrum management, really helps us realize the necessity of getting colostrum into calves early, and just makes it easier to understand the importance. We talked in the bullpen session this afternoon about if you had pulled a calf and it happened to be dead on arrival and you knew that you would be able to get some good colostrum potentially out of that cow, but it's late in the day and you're really tired and you really want to go home. It's the middle of calving season, you've been up all night. If you know why that colostrum is so important, it might give you just that little extra boost of energy you need to get that cow milked out and get that frozen and get it in the freezer and ready for the next calf. Go ahead.
Sorry, which was interesting because I didn't know there was 6 different layers to that placental, right? And so it's challenging for antibodies, antibody proteins to cross those 6 layers. And so that's why also, I mean, intake of colostrum is hugely critical because it maybe is not coming across that placental transfer.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, knowing that difference makes it a little clearer as to why they don't talk nearly as much about colostrum in babies when people are having children. You just don't hear quite as much about it as we talk about it on the veterinary side. I'm sure producers think you just can't talk about anything else. Surely there's more to talk about, and we just, colostrum, you've got to get it in. Yeah. So hopefully this was...
Well, you also mentioned, I believe it was called gut closure, is that correct? And that within only a few hours that calf is actually no longer able to really utilize that colostrum, so getting it in as soon as possible is critical.
Yeah, there's those specialized cells that are able to take those whole antibody proteins and put them directly into the bloodstream, and they begin to slough as soon as the calf is born. And they're replaced by cells that will digest those proteins, they'll still be a protein source, but it'll render them ineffective as antibodies. So we want to get colostrum in as soon as possible while those enterocytes are still there and can do their job. And that's exactly right. We call it gut closure because once the door is closed,
it's closed.
Yeah.
And then one of the last things you talked about toward the end of the presentation was more on the management part of it and trying to really break that pathogen movement, maybe is the right word. And you talked about the sandhills calving system, which has been around for a long time, as you noted. It's been utilized for a long time, but can you share what that is?
Sure. So the sandhills calving method is a method of breaking the chain of transmission of pathogens from one age cohort of calves to the next. If calves are infected in sequence, they can amplify pathogen, and sandhills calving basically gives a way of breaking that transmission by restarting calving season multiple times. So the way it works is the textbook way that it works is you start with a number of clean calving pastures. All the pregnant cows go into a single pasture and they stay there for 2 weeks, and whichever cows calve in there, they stay there, and all the heavy or still pregnant cows move to the next calving pasture after that time expires. They stay there for 1 week, and whatever calves in there stays there. the rest of the heavy cows move to the next pasture, and so on and so forth through calving season. It just allows each, what we call age cohort of calves, to be separated from the others and to develop for their first critical month of life before they are joined back up into a herd.
And is it correct that it's calves, lost my 2 to 4 weeks are the pathogens? That's when they like to share.
That does seem to be about the window when
Yeah.
when we see when those calves are in contact with the newest calves is when we
Yeah.
run into issues. Yep.
Yeah. So you talked about you had to have multiple pastures obviously set up for this for the Sandhills calving system program. Is there alternatives or modifications that people can do if they don't have that
Ability.
land mass or ability to do that? Yeah.
Sure. So there has been some data presented within the last few years related to doing this in a pen-based calving system. But some of the concepts that are most important are that age segregation, making those calf age cohorts. So if you do some other method of calving and you're running into problems with scours, anything you can do to break that chain of transmission is going to be potentially helpful. Whether it's pairing out into pastures in those age cohorts, that can be potentially helpful, anecdotally at least, in some of those situations. Or anything else you can do to basically keep the newest calves away from the heavy pathogen load, whether that's in a building or in a pen that's been heavily utilized, or there's manure in a certain area of straw that you know you're going to have a weather event, you need to bring calves in, but you know that that area is heavily contaminated. Maybe that's not the best choice for the newest calves. So I think there are ways to, and I'm talking a little bit beyond what I can support with research at this point, but I think there are some concepts that we can build on with Sandhills calving in order to find other ways to fit it into our current system.
Well, and I know during the bullpen session you had a question from a producer that they did grazing rotation and kept the same age or multiple age groups together, and your response was that really isn't going to break that cycle because you still have that mixed age group of calves regardless if they're doing a rotational system or not. Right.
That is what at least a couple papers have said, and the data that we have is that even though we're moving to clean ground, when we have those age groups mixed, we can still have some problems. And then along those same lines, even if you pair out really effectively from a central hub, it may not be possible, even if those calves are in their age cohorts, but you have a lot of contamination where the calving actually takes place, it still may be a problem there. So both things are at play. It's the ground and the I want to say more than just the environment, but like the water tank and the feed bunk and the dirt floor of the pen. That's part of it, and the pasture surface is part of it. But then also that age mingling is a part of it as well. So it's both combined, and I don't want to say more than what I can support with research. So at that point, I probably better.
No, absolutely, totally
up.
respect that. So, well, we do appreciate you, Dr. Clark, joining us here, and it's been a pleasure visiting with you. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.